Small business war stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes. Hey, lovers of small businesses and good stories in general. Welcome to episode 146 of Small Business War Stories. We're closing in on 3 years. We'll have a big one for that early in 2020. But for today, I sat down with Michael Slotboom of Armadillo Guitar. And he makes these amazing... he found a niche. He makes custom-made parts like brass and copper and steel milled parts for one specific type of guitar, a Fender Telecaster. And he talks about how he was on track to run the machine shop at the University of Texas, but he decided that he wanted to be independent and he wanted to do things his own way, and ended up starting a shop in his house that turned into a successful business that he's been doing this for many, many years. And it's really interesting to me because a lot of times I come across people and they're thinking about this, dichotomy, this tension between the safe path and going out and setting out on their own. And Michael is somebody who proves that you don't need a huge industry. If you're very good at what you do and you have a niche group of customers, you can definitely succeed. And he gives some tips and some shares experience in how to do that. He had an awesome little puppy, Hank, and Hank is a coonhound. He was amazing, but he did kind of make his way known and during the episode. So he would a couple times he made us drop the equipment, and he was chewing on the cables. So yeah, all fun at Small Business War Stories. But this episode is brought to you by Gusto. That's our sponsor. So I encourage you to check them out. It's at Gusto. And Gusto is a way, if you're a small business, for you to manage your payroll, for you to manage all your benefits, your receivables. And especially as the end of the year is approaching here, for you to be able to set up all of your finances correctly for next year. This is a perfect time to do that. So go to gusto.com. That's GUSTO/war stories, WAR stories, and sign up. And we appreciate their support, and we appreciate what they do for our audience and small businesses that listen to the show. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode, number 146, with Michael Slotboom of Armadillo Guitar in Austin, Texas. And we are live here in beautiful Austin, Texas. And today I have the pleasure and honor to sit down here with Michael Slotboom, who is the founder, proprietor, operator here at Armadillo Guitar. And I am here. We have Hank, which is this new little puppy. What kind of puppy is this?
He's a red-bone coonhound.
Red-bone coonhound, and this thing is going to be huge. I mean, it's currently about 15 pounds, but it's going to be about 100 and some.
He'll be about 110 pounds when
That's
he's full
awesome.
grown. Yeah,
that's awesome. So you and I have known each other for a few years. You've helped me with some of the projects. You've supported my music by coming to see my shows, but also.
Of course, but it's well deserved. I wouldn't keep going back.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. But you've also you make these amazing custom guitar parts, and I've taken it upon myself to build a few instruments that I use on stage, and you've helped me with that. So how did you start making? I mean, so we're sitting here in a shop, and there's probably about a half dozen high end, really awesome lathes and machines of that I'm sure we'll go into in a minute here. But how did you get started making guitar parts?
Well, it's actually it goes all the way back to my meeting of what ended up being one of my best friends. His name is Tony Redman, and he lived here in Austin, Texas. My wife met him first because we had twins, and she would be out walking them in a twin stroller, and they'd end up at a park right in our neighborhood. And she met Tony, me. She came back. She says, Michael, man, you got to meet this guy. You and he are gonna click like you can't even believe.
Yeah.
And I put it off. But then we ended up down at Cherrywood Coffee House, and I finally met him.
Yeah.
And man, we clicked immediately.
And what were you doing at that time?
At that time, I was working at the mechanical engineering department at the University of Texas, and I was teaching students how to machine, and I would cherry pick the best ones and take them out, train them on the CNCs.
Yep.
And that's pretty much what I was doing. And I was pretty much slated to take over that entire machine shop once Don Artachovsky retired. But at that point, I had opened my shop, and I thought, well, I can make more money and be happier and be of more service to our family if I just run my own shop here.
Okay.
And that's kind of how it happened. In meeting Tony, I had always I didn't have a machine shop at that point. I was working at UT, and where we're sitting now, this was a motorcycle shop.
Oh, okay.
I rebuilt and restored old motorcycles.
Yeah, there's a motorcycle right next to
us.
There's
one right here. This is a beautiful example of a mid-'80s Suzuki Thumper.
Nice.
And it's almost complete. And
there you go.
I'm hoping it's going to run.
The machine we're recording on right now, it's sitting on a half assembled motorcycle.
Yeah, I'm just hoping this sucker is going to run once I have it all the way back put together. But I don't know.
Yeah.
And Tony's he's a longtime Telecaster player, and he showed me some websites, and I was saying, man, I kind of want to get away from motorcycles.
And a Telecaster, for our listeners who may not know, that's a type of guitar.
Type of Fender guitar. Yeah. It's a Fender guitar, and he was saying, man, if you could just make some knobs like this with this heavy knurl, man, you wouldn't believe how many you could sell. So I came home and I told my wife, I said, man, if we were getting ready to sell a house, and it was in the process of being sold, and I said, look, if I can have $10,000, I can start this shop. And, we've lost $10,000 on numerous other things over the years. And I said, if it works, fantastic. If not, I'll just sell off the machinery and I'll just tell you I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But it took off. I made exactly what Tony said to start with, and then they did sell.
Yeah.
And so it just
these are significantly more expensive. So the regular knobs for a Fender Telecaster probably cost what, like $8 for a pair or something like that?
Right. Yeah.
And the ones that you sell are close to like $40 or $50.
Exactly. But the thing is that if you're going to a place like All Parts or StewMac, those knobs, and I'm not trying to knock them or anything, but the way that they do the knurl, it's an entirely different style.
Right.
I end up using cut knurlers. So it just takes one pass. It cuts them. They're complete and they're sharp.
And they feel they have a completely different, like a heavy sort of like substantial feel is the best way to put it.
Right. And then the other thing, if I had a CNC lathe, I could bring the cost down because everything would be more automated and faster. But I use all manual lathes and mostly manual machines.
Why do you do that?
Well, a lot of it is because it just gives me a whole lot more feel and control over the final product.
Okay.
And then another part of it too is cost.
Yeah.
And the fact that most of the size machines that would be the most efficient for me, they just don't have either the torque, or there's always like one or two things.
So you thought about getting a CNC machine?
Oh God, I've thought about it for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And I've even contacted people that build these specifically, kind of not as a side job, but like the guy that owned Fadal before he sold it. His name is
what's that company? I'm not familiar.
Fadal, Fadal. They made CNC machines. They were really dominant during the 80s, early 90s. The guy's name, His first name is, I think, his first name I believe is David. But his last name is Clausen.
Okay.
And he was one of the original engineers with Fedal, and he ended up going off. He sold Fedal. Or his interest in it. He went off on his own and started building CNC machines, and
Okay.
they were fantastic. I contacted him a bunch of times.
Yeah.
He never ever responded.
So let's talk a little bit about the leap of faith that you took. So,
Okay.
there's all these machines that you have here. And what was that conversation like with your wife? And what you didn't know if it was going to work, and you took this big leap of faith with $10,000. And that was this house that you were about to sell. So you
Exactly.
I mean, that was a long time ago. So you did not sell it.
Right.
So what was that? How did you feel at the time, and how did you handle that?
That leap of faith, it was absolutely, it was so easy.
Yeah.
I mean, I to this day, I really can't believe how easy it was. I just basically presented it to her.
Yeah.
And I said, look, this is how, because I'd already had like the shop going. I had that machine there,
Yeah.
which the audience can't see, but it's just a really insignificant 3-axis manual milling machine.
Okay.
And I
Kind of
bought-
looks like a large drill press.
It looks like a
source.
large drill press. Yeah, it's got a 2 horsepower motor. It's a nice machine. But I bought that one. I think that only cost me about $1,200. And I bought this main lathe here, and I think that cost me about $1,800. I bought that grinder, which was about $80, and I don't know. I bought a couple other little things.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And so I was working with that while I was still at UT, and then the conversation
So
was
you're doing it at night?
I was doing it at night, and all day, every day on the weekends.
Yeah. And how did you? What year was this?
This was This is
That you can
sorry,
cuss.
sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, sorry about that. This was 15 years ago.
Okay, so
yeah.
15 years ago, how did you? Because your friend told you that there was a market for these, specialty parts. The internet commerce was there, but not as prominent as it is today.
Right, it wasn't strong at all.
So how did you find your new customers? Because that's a very specialized market, right? I happen to be a part of it, but it's a bunch of specialized, guitar nerds and weirdos that want those specific parts of things.
Right,
So-
right. Yeah, and Telecaster players are among the most sort of website searching weirdos
Yeah.
out there. So basically, what I did was I made a couple of sets for Tony. I said, "Look, man, try these out. Tell me what you think." And he came back and says, "God, these are absolutely perfect." So he said, "If you can make 8 more sets, let me give them to other people." So the other people were people like Cindy Cash Dollar, Red Volkart, and then other area.
Red Volkart still plays here in Austin, right?
He lives and plays here.
Yeah, he's
and
became
he's-
famous by touring with Merle Haggard, right?
He played for Merle for
Yeah.
years, and he's just there's no words for how
Yeah.
fantastic this man is.
Yeah.
And so Tony got them out there for me, and at the same time, my sister-in-law, who's a web designer, was building me a website.
Okay.
So she built, I guess what would be considered nowadays a relatively primitive website.
Okay.
And it was rather confusing because, it was like partitioned. There was one side that was Armadillo Machine, where I was saying that the other stuff that I was able to do and my capacity, and then Armadillo Guitar, which at that point all it had on it was knobs.
Yeah.
But I started getting orders from the Armadillo Guitar site, and everybody that was on that came to give me the orders were also part of the TDPRI,
that's a big forum, right?
That's the big Telecaster forum.
Yeah.
And so I figured, okay, well, shit, these guys are on the forum.
Yeah.
I've got to do my absolute
Did you
best
start
for everyone.
advertising or just
I didn't ever.
participating?
I have never advertised.
Oh, wow.
And I really didn't participate in the forum because I had started looking at it, and I kind of saw what happened when owners of companies sort of chimed in on these, on these forum threads, and it never ended well.
Yeah.
And I thought, no.
Well, then people would just be like, screw you. You're
Well,
promoting.
what would end up happening would be somebody would make something and they'd ship it to somebody and they'd put it on the guitar, and either it didn't fit or it didn't meet their expectations in some way, and then they would make a comment, and then it's like the owner of the shop would be like the first one to chime in and say, well, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, blah blah blah. And then God, at that point, it's like everybody sort of piles on, and so I thought, no, don't get involved in any of that. Just make the absolute best product you can.
So how did how did you get involved? You just started monitoring like what people
were
saying?
I went ahead, I logged in, got an account and all that, and then it used to be like every couple of weeks I would just sort of log in and I would put in keywords and see what was said, and nobody ever said a bad thing about me for years. Mm-hmm. So I've actually I can't even tell you the last time I've logged on there.
Got it. But you don't go on there and talk about your product or anything?
No. I don't do anything like that because
you do have some competitors who do.
I do. I've got a lot of competitors.
And they do go onto those websites.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
About things.
And they do. It's kind of weird with Fender Telecasters because you can't really group these people into a category. You've got the people that are the traditionalists, that everything has got to be the .048 inch chrome plated or nickel plated 1018 cold rolled steel, or it ain't right, because that's what Leo wanted.
Right.
So you've got that group, and then you've got all the groups like that are looking at people like Keith Richards and Andy Summers, that really sort of opened up the entire guitar to brass. So there's just so many.
Yeah, because you and I worked on some really cool parts, and like one of my stage guitars has like a brass bridge, which is completely different, and then copper plate, which is also completely different.
Right.
And so you kind of started expanding what it meant to customize your guitar.
Yeah. But it was actually, it's only because of the Fender Telecaster. I don't know. I can't name any other guitar that a person will buy and then take off perfectly serviceable products to replace them than the Fender Telecaster.
Yeah.
And then I remember having a conversation with my wife and saying, if we wouldn't have had this money for me to start this shop, could you imagine the conversation I would have with a banker when I go in there to ask for a loan, saying, I need X amount of dollars. Well, what do you do? Well, I want to open a machine shop. Say, well, what do you want to make? Well, I want to make guitar parts. I want to make custom guitar parts. But I only want to make them for one model of one brand. How long do you think that conversation is going to last?
And not only that, it's not. It's to replace perfectly good parts.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But the Fender Telecaster,
and that carries your business, right? You've gone way
exactly.
beyond knobs. You do like a lot of the bridges and plates and
nowadays I pretty much do everything, every bit of hardware for Fender Telecasters minus the tuners. I don't do that, but everything else I pretty much do.
Wow, that's amazing. So, and there's enough of a market for that to sustain your business. And
but
you ship worldwide too.
And I ship worldwide. And there is enough of a market, and
but that's fascinating. So that what's really interesting about that is a lot of times people are like, well, I want to start a business, but I don't know what, and is this market big enough, right? Now, you have the advantage that you have your shop here. You don't have any employees.
Correct.
Right? Have you had apprentices or employees?
You told me I've had apprentices. I've had a few apprentices. But they all go on to other things.
Okay.
I think that the world is just kind of changing that way.
Okay. So you serve a very particular niche of people who play one type of guitar, and like you make the specific parts for that, and that's enough for you to have a great living here in the city of Austin. Have your shop and sustain your family and all that.
Yeah. So far it is, and every night I go to bed, I think, God, how long can this last? You know, I keep thinking that, man, there's at some point, isn't everybody going to have, you know, everything they need? But for 15 years, it's
Wow.
been strong. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
I'm still nervous, you know, and I'm still thinking about, well, let's see, I can make tractor parts, you know, there, but so far I haven't had to do that.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And yeah, and a lot of it is word of mouth. You do no advertising. You have
Right,
you
right.
have a social media presence, but you don't spend a ton of time.
Yeah, I have a social media presence, and I used to spend quite a bit of time on it. I had, well, I still do. I've got a Facebook business page. I've got a Facebook page, and I use Instagram. That's about it. The only reason I use Instagram is it's just so easy. You know, when you take a picture and you say whatever you want, and then when you post it, it also goes directly to Facebook.
Right.
But I haven't used the Armadillo guitar business part of Facebook for a long time.
Okay. Wow. Can you think of a time when things went really wrong in your business, like some bad mistake happened or something just went south?
Well, not really. I mean, honestly, the bad things that happen, since I'm the employee, the bad things that happen is just me messing something up.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I will have orders for very specific one-off custom parts.
Right.
And I try to always take like really good notes, but sometimes in your mind you just sort of get it wrong. You think,
Mhm.
oh, it's this spacing, and you do that, and they, oh my good God, you know, I just messed this up, and then you have to start over. That's about the worst of it.
That's not bad.
And
If
it's not.
15 if
and
you're doing
it's-
this for 15
yeah,
years,
yeah,
and like
it's,
having to scrap a piece of brass is the worst
Right.
thing that's happened.
and it's really not that bad. It's just that at that point when you're doing is like, you know, that just that sinking feeling, and I got to start all over. But the fact of the matter is that I just put it in that drawer right there.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, somebody's going to contact me, and they're going to say, hey man, I know this is like a really weird request, but
Yeah.
I need blah 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 blah.
Well,
and
actually,
then
I
all
think
of a
that
sudden,
happened
you know,
with me. I think
yeah.
there was one part of like we used a part for one of my builds that was where the holes have been drilled. Oops.
Oh man.
No, that's fine. Check. There you go.
Check.
All
I'm
right.
back
We're
on.
back.
Sorry
We're back.
about- sorry about
That's
that.
fine. The puppy. We had a little bit of a puppy incident here with good old Hank knocking things around. But we are back online, and so yeah, that happened with me. Where like you had a part that we ended up using that was in that little drawer. So that's great. So tell me about some.
I've got more than one drawer.
Yeah, you have more than one drawer. That's awesome. Tell me about some of the people that you've made parts for. I mean, you've worked with like who's who of people who are.
Oh yeah. Well, I've made parts for a lot of people. I guess, let's see, off the top of my head. Now you're taxing my.
Well, I think the
brain,
last
but,
time I was here, you were shipping some stuff to Bruce Springsteen, right?
Yeah. And in fact, I'm getting ready to. Dave Patello has taken over his dad's shop. His dad, Phil Patello, he was the, kind of the builder and engineer. He's an engineer, was an engineer. I'm sorry, because he passed.
Yeah.
But he did everything for Bruce.
Yeah.
At any time, And I've done a lot of work for Dave, whom is his son.
Yep.
And I'm getting ready now to start making him another run of those Bruce Springsteen string trees.
Okay.
And those things are pretty cool. They're 70-75 aluminum, aerospace grade aluminum.
Mm-hmm.
And they're unique. And anybody who ever looks at Bruce's tellies, they know it's unique.
Okay.
And then other than that, Jimmy Herring has been just an absolutely incredible customer.
Yeah.
I guess he's probably most known right now for playing lead guitar in Widespread Panic.
Okay.
But he and I, we have become really, really good friends. I've made a bunch of parts for him. The rhythm guitarist.
We got a little Hank here.
Little Hank.
Little
Hank.
Wants some attention. No, that's fine.
Mark Chatfield,
Okay.
the rhythm guitarist with Bob Seger. I've made three sets of bridge plates and saddles for him.
Okay.
And it was so cool because in turn, he got me and my wife tickets to their final performance here in Austin. And I've still got the wristband, man. It was an all-access wristband.
That's awesome.
He gave me that, and the thing that was so cool about that was that Bob Seger has been like my wife's absolute favorite musician all the way back into the 70s, all the way when we were in high school.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, man, that was just the greatest thing. I mean, even though we're separated, but just to be able to give her that gift and just sort of see her smile, that was so cool. And then, of course, I worked with Gibson Heritage. They did 100 guitars. The Dickie Betts, one brother to another. That was the Les Paul that is actually an SG shape. That Dickie Betts gave that to Dwayne Allman. To use for a slide, so that he didn't have to waste time tuning down for a slide on his other guitar. And so they reissued that. I made all the knobs for it. And that alone, just that was it for me. I thought, man, I could die tonight. Everything's great.
That's awesome. And you're living life on your own terms, right? You're doing it the way you want to do it.
Well, yeah, I suppose so. I guess I don't really think about it that way.
You have an amazing house in a great area of Austin here, and you've been here for a long time. You're working with the world-class musicians, making custom parts and doing what we love to do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess.
That's living the dream, man.
I suppose so. I just look at it like, well, let's see. I get up at 5 a.m. I work till about 10 at night. So I'm thinking, I don't know how much of a dream this really is.
Well, thanks for taking the time to do this podcast. That's awesome. So, what are your main right now? Your main channel it's just word of mouth, right, for people to find out about you?
Yeah, it's word of mouth, I guess. I think that's mainly it, because I've never spent any money.
There are no logos on your knobs or anything like that, so people don't know.
No, because I don't know. I mean, everybody had told, well, not everybody, but a lot of guitar makers had told me that I should probably engrave the logo in the plates and all that. But I don't want to mention any names, but I've seen a lot of plates where they're engraved with the company name and all that. And I thought, I just don't want to go that way. If people want, I will sign the back of a plate, or I will do something on the back to make it known. But I really just don't want it, out there like that. I mean, look at Keith Richards' guitars. There's nobody's name on those plates. I mean, we all know what they are, but it's not like. It just kind of seems arrogant to me. Okay. What's your vision? What do you want? I mean, you said that you still wonder if people are going to still buy this kind of stuff. But what's your vision? What do you want to do with this? What's your next 10 years? Well, I want to do this as long as I physically can. I'm always thinking about new products and new ways to kind of, in my opinion, to kind of really enhance what can go on with the Telecaster. And I've introduced quite a few things, but the thing of it is that a lot of the customers, particularly for Telecasters, very, very difficult to convince them of things. And the fact of the matter is that there's an awful lot of companies similar to mine that are trying to do the same thing and putting it out there, and they pretty much fail on they don't fail on a grand scale, but the idea, it's like a new idea, but it's not accepted. So it's a traditionalist crowd, is what you're saying. Right, exactly. I cannot tell you, over the phone, how many times I've heard, hey, you know what, buddy, it was good enough for Roy. They're talking about Roy Buchanan, because for years and years his guitar was unaltered except for the pickups. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, and I say, yeah, but you're not Roy. That's funny.
Cool, man. Where can people find you? If people are interested in finding more, what are your websites, your social media handles and such?
Let's see. The website is armadilloguitar.com.
Okay.
And then on Facebook, there is Armadillo Guitar.
Okay.
And there's Armadillo Guitar on Instagram. And I believe that's all sort of one long word.
Awesome.
in those cases.
And we'll put a link in the show notes as well.
Oh, fantastic.
All right.
And then my regular email is just MD, as in Michael David, Slotboom, which is SLOT, B as in boy, OOM, at hotmail.com.
Perfect. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much. I mean, I've known you for years. I've always wanted to interview you and get your story. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share this today. And I wish you continued success in what you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Take care.
Uh-huh.
Small Business War Stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes.